Hello, homeschoolers. Welcome to the land of Kakiak. My name is Laurel. So I homeschool 3 boys using the Robinson curriculum as the base of our education. I do call us RC Plus. I am definitely accommodating to our own circumstances, and I've made my own bridge curriculum into a more RC pure method. Today I will be talking about my 4th grade curriculum picks. So some of the things I choose to add into our homeschool that makes us different than a Robinson curriculum like pure family is we add in notebooking, I add in spelling, and vocabulary is a little bit different. I put a focus on, I just continuously am using the McGuffey readers versus reading them just as any other book on the book list, like all in one. And I actually format that more in lessons. And I use Right Start Math instead of Saxon. Yeah, I'm definitely not an RC purist, but it is the foundation of our homeschool, and it was like the best place for me to start. And I still come back to it whenever it's planning season time. I come back to my RC roots and start there and assess my goals for the year and where my child is developmentally. And I do keep in mind kind of the classical method of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And I kind of keep that in my mind too, to balance like what's reasonable for me to expect from my student. I also am joining a co-op this year, and so I will be working in those classes. So let's go to the desk and let's get planning. So let's start from the beginning. Got to get into the planning binder. All right, so William, I turn to his section. Okay, this is William's summer program. I'm just gonna take these out. Okay, so I've got a summer. I'm just gonna put that to the side. This is what we're currently doing. And that's like less strict, right? Less structured. And then I just pulled out a fresh curriculum sheet to plan for his 4th grade year. So Will, this is going to be grade 4, right? This is 24-25 school year. Okay, so in my state, we always start with our requirements from our state. I'm required to teach math, reading, writing, social studies, and science. Those are my required subjects. And if I have any electives, I'll put it here. Okay, so for math, he is just going to be continuing on, and I'm going to show you all, I'll give you a physical, like a visual representation of everything at the end when we wrap up. We are still in Right Start Math level C, but we're doing it over the summer, so I think we're going to finish up, so we will get into level D as well. Oh, I forgot to mention our notebooks. I will be continuing him on in the unofficial RC notebook 3. And I kind of went through that in more detail and I kind of showed the pages and talked about why I wanted to stay in that one. It has to do with vocabulary, but I will link that video below for our summer curriculum picks so you can kind of see a deeper discussion of our notebooking pages if you want to see that, if you haven't already. Okay, so Right Start, we'll be doing our math. Even though, yeah, it comes with worksheets, we actually just do the work straight into our notebooks. Okay, reading and lit. So I consider reading to cover vocab, spelling, right, and comprehension right now, which vocabulary goes to comprehension, but those are some other things we will be touching on. So he will be working from the McGuffey's 3rd reader, and I consulted the Eclectic Manual of Methods on this. Excuse me. And just in case you're following along, I'm actually working on a companion notebook for the 2nd revised reader. The 3rd revised reader from the manual just says to basically continue on the 3rd reader in with the same practices that you did in the 2nd reader, but basically that the thinking is deeper. That's what they said. You're just going to think a little bit deeper, probably about the passages. So I will also have the RC book list that he will be reading from. So this is the McGuffey reader. This is guided readed. The McGuffey 3rd reader is guided reading time. So he does this with me daily. And the RC book list, this would be independent reading. And this actually, the magic of the RC method is that the book list is going to cover your like social studies, science, and lit. But I'm putting it up here because we do read it. This just makes it easier for me to think about what he's reading. So for other materials and resources, okay, so for vocabulary, we are using the vocabulary words from the McGuffey Reader, and we use those on our notebooking page. Our spelling, I forgot, this is going to be McGuffey's, I made my own spelling program, right? So spelling has its own page in the notebook too. I do kind of separate out at this age spelling and vocabulary because they can read and understand words that are much more complex words than they're proficient at spelling. I really use the spelling to drill down on the rules, like the spelling patterns and spelling rules. And it's more of an ask to get a kid to spell a word than to read it and, understand it. We will do, our spelling program is going to be McGuffey spelling level, we're going to skip up to level 4. So we are finishing up level 3 this summer. And it really focused on adding, like inflectional endings, like plurals. Is it S, I-E-S, or E-S? I-N-G, is it E-D? And how the spelling rules fit. So outside the normal spelling patterns, we did work on, in our spelling program, those inflectional endings and the spelling rules, going over those to make sure you're spelling those right. This one is going to bump it up, spelling level 4 to using affixes and attaching those to the spelling words if possible. And this is going to work nicely because in the third McGuffey Reader, we started studying the affixes that we have been encountering in the vocabulary words in the McGuffey Reader. So now we'll be able to, we've been studying those for a while on the reading level and the comprehension level. We're going to start spelling level 4, putting them into action on the spelling side of things. And again, I have a workbook for this, but we will be doing the work just inside of our notebook. And we use our workbook I use it as a key. I just fill it in as we go. But he opens it up like a textbook to see what the activity is for that day. And then he does it in his notebook. Okay, so other materials and resources here. So we will be having our affix flashcards. This is something that we are physically making ourselves at the moment as we encounter them. We have our spelling rule flashcards. These are helpful. And this will help me. I don't know if you watched my video the other day about 10 tips to simplify your homeschool and how we promote our curriculum resources into a basket for what we're currently using. When I write all this stuff down, one, this helps me to fill out my application for the year for my homeschool association. But 2, it tells me what to put. It's my shopping list for my basket. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with our homeschool library. I do my planning out here, and then I just shop my shelves and put all this stuff into a basket for the school year. Okay, affix flashcards, spelling rule flashcards. What else do we need on this? Obviously, we have a dictionary. Let's say his dictionary is already in his basket. He has his own. And I'll just, also the McGuffey, we have the McGuffey spelling book, the revised edition spelling book. It also stays in there because we reference that and the dictionary for his spelling program. Okay, so for writing, I know I kind of put spelling, I kind of consider writing, but I kind of put it all into the reading category. For writing, he is doing gentle grammar. He is going to finish up level 2 this summer. So he'll be going levels 3 and 4. He'll be able to cover those in 4th grade, just doing 1 lesson a day. And again, we use we buy the workbooks off of Amazon. And again, I'll link all these resources in the description box if you want to look at them. But we do all of our work in our notebook. So I just want to keep all of his work in one place. It just simplifies our homeschool so much. Okay, social studies. So I could stop here basically with my planning. And social studies, I could just pick some books off of the RC book list that fall into that category. And like I said before, science, I feel like we're at a spot where we're a little bit on the dead zone for the core reading list and the RC book list. But if you go, and I've never really tried to use the CDs. I got them when I bought the curriculum. but I've always, I have a lifetime subscription to the online version, which I love. I love the online version. Okay, but what is really helpful for this time, if you don't want to like buy an extra science curriculum at this point, you're following more of the RC method, thinking on science and when to teach it. They have, I've made these, I've just printed them out, from the online version. There's famous scientists. I just made my own little cover. In fact, if you are an RC parent and if you like the famous scientist articles, I'm going to show them to you in a second, and you want this cover, I will link it in the description box if you just want a cover to print off. And then there's a science overview articles also. Let me show you what these are. And these are, I feel like the famous scientists would be where I would probably start. We did this, I think in 5th grade with Everett, and we just had so much fun this year. This was so fun. So famous scientists, they have all of these articles, and this is what I would do with William this year for science if I wasn't, I'll get to it. I actually signed him up for science in his co-op, so I think I might just let them do it. But this was actually my plan for the year, was to do famous scientists. And look how beautiful these are. I printed these all out. They're color, so they could read an article on Newton's color disc. And see it, they're pretty short. And then Queen Elizabeth's doctor discovers the Earth is a magnet, the riddle of the dipping compass needle. Look at, I love the artwork in them. And it goes through time. And these are just so well written, and they're like shorter. So, I mean, 5th grade might have been the perfect age for them. I feel like maybe 4th grade you might have to read them with them. I don't know. But this is one of the things that's available with RC. I love it. And what we actually had Everett do is this famous scientist report. So he would read one of these a day, and then he would, there's different levels, right, that you can do with it. There's level 1, level 2. He would read one of these on Monday, and then he would have his famous scientist report, his like outline, and he would answer these questions to the best of his ability. But I always encourage my kids to cross-reference. So we always did 2 things. He would find, this inventor in the encyclopedia, or perhaps even their invention. And he would, a lot of times, copy it, like take a photocopy and even like attach it to the back of this or something. And he would highlight anything he wanted to add to his report. And he would also, a lot of times, if there was a lot of these, I know I've talked about this before on here, it's been a while. A lot of these experiments have demonstrations online. There's a lot of physics professors at colleges that have reproduced their experiments. If science is a bust at co-op, I'm gonna go to this. The other thing that they have is the science overview stuff. So like the true length of a day. We'll talk about astronomy here. The sun, the planets. Some of them are a little bit hard to read. So these are more articles that are available with RC. And again, I would just do this like over a whole week or something. If they're older, they could read multiple, articles. If they could read one a day or something and do a summary or something like that, whatever you want them to do. But yeah, I just wanted you to see that there are some science things available. They're just not in the core reading list. You have to go to, it's probably, I think it's like in bonus materials or something like that, but you have to look for them a little bit. Speaking of, I do have sequences here that I'll share with you in the description box. And these are things that I've gone through for I think through 8th grade for everything. For language arts, math, science. So I could go to 4th grade. So I have Apologia Astronomy slated for homeschool, but I actually did it. He actually wanted to do it last year, so he actually did that in 3rd grade. So yeah. So another one would be the famous scientists. There's all these who was, right? If you didn't have RC, but you liked the idea of studying famous scientists, you can read all those who was books. And these are all links to all of these resources. So Yeah, I have my own like potential, like a lot of these I've bought already, so most of them I already have, so I can just look in here to help me shop. Bible resources, social studies, and history sequence stuff, all different books and everything. So yeah, I look in there at my sequences a lot too. At this point, I just almost have it memorized because I've been dealing with it long enough, but I do feel like I tweak it a little bit like every year. Okay, so for science, he's actually doing that in co-op, and I don't know. All I know is I signed it up for science and I have not heard back. I'm waiting for them to do all their class descriptions and tell us what books and everything. I haven't heard yet. So all I know is that he's doing it at science at co-op. So I'm leaving that for now, but I'm going to put as a backup, I'm going to put famous scientists just in case. And then he would be doing, his other materials would be his report outline. Okay, for social studies, he is doing, so I've talked about this a lot before, that one of my RC Plus things is like our morning time is always like family subjects. So in the morning we do Bible and we do some kind of read aloud. And I switch on and off with the read aloud being just like whatever book I feel like we should read. It's usually some kind of fiction book. But sometimes it's not. We have read some nonfiction stuff, just things we wanted to talk about. And the other thing I really like is the Good and the Beautiful's history. And so I just think of that as like going towards background knowledge. I read them just like the textbook. We listen to the audio lessons part. Sometimes we do the activities because they're just fun. And I don't have to do this like every single day, but we do it if we're doing like a unit of history from the Good and the Beautiful. I just do it straight through almost every day until it's done. I don't try to spread it out over a whole year. I just really condense it. I do a unit. There's 4 units a year. I'll read unit 1, and then there's a read aloud that goes along with that as well. And I just value that time in the morning. It's like this togetherness that we're like learning together. We all kind of sync up. There's something that we all have in common that we can talk about, like our Bible studies and our, or whatever we're reading together aloud. And also I have to say that like my oldest especially he's not a morning person. It is really difficult to get him up and like straight into math. Like it's just a hard way for him. It just wasn't working out for us. So we've just really been enjoying our morning time together. We start at 10 a.m. That allows us to get a lot of stuff done in the morning to set ourselves up for success for the day. Then we come together for about 2 hours to do Bible and like read alouds, whatever that is. And but for the sake of my planning, I always tell my homeschool association that I'm just doing the Good and the Beautiful. And we're doing year 3 because it is something that I'm required to teach, and it's a lot easier than me trying to pick out all of the social studies books off the RC list that I want them to read. And so this just simplifies it for me. They can just read the RC books as they come up in the list. And I figure that the family subject, doing the Good and Beautiful like a family subject, goes to background knowledge. It'll help them better understand those independent books off the RC list when they get to them. Remember, some of the big components of reading comprehension are, right, just decoding, being able to properly decode the word, like phonics and stuff, and understanding morphology, like what does, so going to vocabulary, like what does the prefix, dis mean to this word, so that they can understand their words. That's also another part of like decoding, right? So there's phonics, there's morphology, and then there's also being able to read at a proper speed. They're not very fluent readers. That disrupts their like thoughts and stuff too, right? But another big component is background knowledge. If they're coming constantly across terms, places, and words that they've never heard before in their independent reading, they're just not going to get very much. They're going to lose so much, right? That they're not going to, that the book had the potential to connect them to. I notice this all the time in our read alouds, because even stuff like we're reading a book that's like, it's over 100 years, like 120 years ago it was written. it's written in English, right? We can understand these are English words. We can read the words, but it takes place in England like 120 years ago. And we don't know what the heck they're talking about. Like a bunch of stuff because they just used, their technology was different, you know? And they also refer to a lot of like Greek stuff. And I was like, that must have just been part of their education at the time, that there was more of a reference to Greek mythology. I feel like they're always referencing stuff like that. And so we're just constantly together as a family looking that stuff up. And I'm like, I never shy away from it because I'm like, you know what, we are building up their background knowledge, because when they come across this stuff in other books, then especially since we read a lot of classics and older books, then this is going to be really valuable to them. Anyways, off topic, but you understand, morning time. And then we have lunch, and then they do their independent work after lunch. Okay, where was I? So The Good and the Beautiful, year 3, and it does have companion notebooks. Sometimes we do those. It does have readers. I'll be reading those aloud to them. And I would just also say that there are things off the RC book list in there that are going to be covering those, you know, social studies, like history topics, but I'm just not going to worry about planning them out because they just happen when they happen. Like I always make sure, like I know this year William's going to read I did insert a bunch of Native American readers into his RC book list. They're just shorter and he can read them probably in like a week, but like I know that they're in there. And I can actually just copy off of, since I have to write a description for my homeschool association, I'm going to copy, since I'm doing the same thing with Everett. There's 4 units, so Ancient Mesopotamia and Israel, Ancient Africa, Native North America, Westward Expansion and Industrialization, and World War II. Okay, and I would consider, like, you can read anything. This program's actually been discontinued. You'd have to find it like secondhand, like on eBay or something. But there's tons of books that you could use as your history spine for the year if you want to do that, kind of like building that background knowledge and do that stuff with your kids. I've got a bunch of resources here that you could do together. Like, so for kindergarten, our spine was America the Beautiful. It was just this really super simple kind of like board book that we use, but I'm required to teach social studies in kindergarten. And then like famous buildings and landmarks. For first grade, I think you do 50 famous stories retold. But there's also all of these. You could have your kids read these independently, but you could also read them to them. Like if you sailed on the Mayflower, the first Thanksgiving reader, George Washington reader, Alexander Hamilton reader, right? Like you could put these into their independent reading list, or you could read them to them. Here's a bunch more. We use the Magic Treehouse book set as a really, as social studies. And William actually just read those independently. There's the Moments in History notebooks that you guys can do together as a family. Those are blank, you fill them in, but you find your spine and you fill those in together. There's some other spines. This Country of Ours. I really like the Rush Revere book set. There's 5 books. It's obviously about American history. We read those all to our kids a couple years ago, and they all loved them. In fact, I feel like I might even read them again because, you know, my youngest didn't really, right, he's not going to understand, and I feel like my middle son will get some more out of them again, so we'll probably reread those as a history kind of spine, like background knowledge thing. And actually they have like kind of like curriculum stuff that goes along with it for free. If you buy those books, go to the Rush Revere website, and there's all types of cool stuff in there that you can download and use. So I was splitting up this Country of Ours into volumes, right? 4th grade, volume 1, 5th grade, volume 2, 6th grade, volume 3 and 4, Our Island Story, grade 7. I know some people might do that one first because you feel like you come from, America comes out of Britain, so that might be helpful to read first. There's also the Everything You Need to Ace World History and Everything You Need to Ace American History. Those are like middle school, so anytime 6th through 8th grade. Those books would be really great history spines. There's so many, New West Press. If you go in there, just look in their history section. There's so many good selections in there. We've bought a brief history of Germany, a sketch of European history, the story of the Romans. Like there's so many good selections in there that you could read from. What I like about The Good and the Beautiful though is that it goes around the world. So you're getting history from, like we learned about things in China and things in Africa and things in the Middle East, and it's not just what is available through Western writers who are, writing about what they know. It's hard to write about what you don't know, right? So I like that The Good and the Beautiful is a more world history. You just get more background knowledge, right? Okay, all right, that was a little detour. Okay, so The Good and the Beautiful, year 3. I actually would really like to know if you have a favorite history, like spine book. Leave it in the comments because I really would like to look. I'm always interested in history spines. I can't buy everything on the market and look at I would really like to see what people are recommending or what they love and what their if they tried something and what their thoughts are on it. Like, I know things I'm interested in looking into is like the generations stuff. Beautiful Feet has a bunch of books. Obviously, I'm a Christian. Our family has more of a Christian, has a Christian worldview. And so, but even like with Christian companies, like, I don't know, like you still, just because someone, I don't know, I'm a little bit, I think we've all been burned. We get to say, oh, they say they're a Christian company, so I can trust their books, right? Like, there's some funny stuff going on in the world. Oh, Nikki Truesdale has a bunch of, is it Knowledge Keepers books? I've never bought any. If anyone's read her books or has an opinion, like, leave me a comment about it because I'm curious, and I will link her site for you in case you don't know who she is. She's a bold voice, and I follow her like on Instagram, and I really enjoy her content. Okay, moving on. Okay, so I think I've got, science, co-op has got his science, and then if I don't like it, we will just do famous scientists. Okay, electives. So he is in his co-op. I signed him up for, okay, he's got personal development. I'm not sure what that exactly is going to be, but it sounded nice. Personal development, gym, of course. Boys, these guys need to run around. He also is he's kind of doing German. He's been doing his Duolingo for a while. Okay, let me just take a look back over. Math, Right Start, got it. Okay, we're working in our unofficial RC Notebook 3. Math, Right Start, okay? Reading, McGuffey Reader, Independent Book List, Spelling, Writing, Gentle Grammar, Social Studies, The Good and the Beautiful. I'm just gonna make my note to myself. This is a family, morning time, science, co-op, or famous scientists if we have to. All right, this is at co-op. I hope nothing has to come home. I hope it's just like a 1 day a week thing. Elective, personal development, gym, and German. Okay, so this is actually going to help me make my, if you guys are interested in kind of seeing his schedule, what his schedule will be looking like, I like to kind of just think about his schedule. What's this going to be? I'm just going to write on the back of this lesson plan page. So school starts at 10 a.m. We start out with Bible. I don't know, I think that probably is going to take 30 minutes. So then around 10:30, we go to read aloud, whatever that is. And I'm going to schedule up to an hour. Doesn't always take that long, but it could be up to an hour depending on if we're doing The Good and the Beautiful. I'd like to schedule myself an hour. That takes us to 11:30. And I actually like to try to get in like reading or math. Probably reading, I like to get out of the way with my youngest son, like as soon as that stuff's done, because my oldest can just jump into his independent, he's 13. He can do whatever he needs to do on his own now. And I'm just checking. William, since I can't sit down and I would usually sit down and do math or his McGuffey lessons with him. Those are like the two things that I have to be like still really present for. So this is when he actually usually does his gentle grammar, because he can do that on his own until and usually doesn't take very long, but I'm just going to schedule 30 minutes, even though it's not going to take that long. But just because I know nothing else is going to get done before noon, right? Noon is lunch. I don't know, so I'd say from 12 to 1 is lunchtime. They eat, clean up, run around for a little bit. So we're probably back in here at 1. My youngest usually gets a longer lunch period. Like he probably gets more like an hour and a half break, even though his brothers come back in here at 1. Everett gets started on his independent stuff. William, I'm going to do his math. And it doesn't take that long. We're going to say 30 minutes for his math lessons. They don't usually take that long. And if it goes for if it's like going more than 30 minutes, I just stop us and say, okay, we'll pick up there tomorrow. Like we just had to split a lesson into like this week. Sometimes some of the lessons are really, really fast. And then some of them, there's like the teaching portion if it's like a new concept, is a little more in depth. And then they have like a worksheet or something or a game to follow up. That's when it like catches me when I have to play a game with them for Right Start. Like I can't just give them a worksheet to work on for their follow-up activity. I can get like, it kind of throws a wrench in my day, but they need that practice. So I do think the games are like a mental workout. They give me a mental workout. So 30 minutes, I'm gonna about draw the line. Okay, so at about 1:30, we're gonna move into, I just call it our McGuffey time. So he's gonna read, we're gonna do whatever activities I have for that level planned for him in his notebook. And we're gonna call that, we're gonna give it 30 minutes. Again, I don't know that it actually takes that long. So then at 2, he can do his independent reading. He does independent reading, and then he has a notebooking page to do on that. So I'm gonna give him a whole hour, just because it just seems like he starting getting squirrely at the end of the day. You know, he can start getting distracted more. He's reading, but then he'll be like, I feel like he stays pretty engaged in his reading, but sometimes when he sits down to do his notebooking page, he just starts spacing off. And I'm like, I'm losing him. And then we actually typically do spelling, like that's his last subject of the day. Do his spelling practice. And again, that doesn't take hardly any time, but I'm going to say 30 minutes just because every once in a while, there are some assignments in there that are a little harder. Like he has to look up some definitions or write some sentences or something. So, and then if he wants to go do Duolingo or something like after school on his own time, he can. It's not something I keep track of. If we had to start doing science, I would just work that into his independent reading and notebooking time. That would just be like what he was doing for that portion. And I would probably, since we're doing like one article a week, I would probably do I would just pick out which ones to do and have him do one a week for like a month and then go back to his like normal reading list. Or I don't know, I might just have him do like one for a week and then go back to his normal reading list and then do one for a week. I don't know. I would just like work it in. Okay, so let's see. This is Will's schedule. Will's day. All right, so don't count that one. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So that's 4.5 hours that I'm expecting it to take, but it could be less. But I definitely want to be done with school. This would put us ending at 3:30, wouldn't it? Which is kind of a typical school day. Except instead of starting at like 8 a.m. like they do in public school, we're starting at 10 a.m. I'm like really into my kids getting enough sleep. Like I want them to like wake up naturally and not disrupt what their brains are needing. All right, so I'm gonna put his 4th grade plan in. Okay, and then I want to show you his stack. For me, this is important to see how many things they're physically juggling and how much we can condense it. I probably could condense some stuff in here. I'm always going back and forth between dropping spelling and just focusing on the words in the reader and applying the things I want them to learn in spelling to the vocabulary words. And I may end up doing that at some point with him. I may not go all the way through the 6 levels and make it a separate subject. I may just start applying the levels from the McGuffey spelling program to the vocabulary words. Right now, I still think it's helpful. My light died. Sorry, this is probably dark. Okay, let's just see the visual manifestation of what we just planned. Okay, so he's going to continue on in his unofficial RC notebook level 3. Again, see the link for the video that I go over those pages. Within that notebook, he will be doing work he will have his Right Start math program. Again, the worksheets, we're just going to do that work actually in the notebook. His McGuffey reader level 3, his gentle grammar levels 3 and 4, McGuffey spelling level 4. This will have all his spelling lists come in it. And then he'll have daily, it goes 7. There's 7 repeating activities. Activity 2 says 3 and 4, 5. Okay, and day 6 is a test day. Just in case you're wondering what those spelling activities are. Okay, so they are analyzing the words, writing the words 3 ways. For this one, it's going to be the word and the part of speech. The second time, if there's a prefix plus a word or the word plus a suffix, right? They're going to be adding on newly formed word and new part of speech. Day 3, word work. They're looking up the definitions, and they're going to copy an example sentence or make up their own, and they are free to modify their word with affixes. And they're also going to note the part of speech. Pattern sort. Day 4, they're just going to be using their spelling rule flashcards, and he's going to be coding which rules and patterns apply to which words. He's also going to pay attention to underlining diphthongs and di or trigraphs, slashing silent letters, marking accented syllables. This is when you're going to want to have the spelling book, the McGuffey spelling book, because he can check his work in that after when he's done, because it has all those diacritics in it. Circling affixes, squaring base words. It's syllable division, and he's just going to write the words and divide them using the syllable division rules and labeling the syllable types. That also really helps with reading. Word pyramids. This is kind of more of a review day. It's pretty simple. And then, of course, the spelling test day. Oh, and he has his spelling. He's got his affix flashcards that we've been making for him as he goes. So, like, on a daily basis, he's got his notebook that he's working in, and these resources, these spines. These are in his basket, like that's it. And he's got a dictionary in there, I guess. He's got a dictionary and some highlighters in there. So what he doesn't have to juggle, but that he still is going to be getting from me, is his Bible time. We're doing the Bible recap still. That's going to still be going on for a while. I've talked about that resource before. And then history, Look on the Beautiful History, year 3. And there is also a companion notebook. I can print out the notebooking pages, but I would just be keeping all that stuff with me in my morning basket stuff. So it's not anything that he has to juggle or worry about. What I want to be highly simplified is what he's doing is independent seat work, so that he doesn't get lost or confused. And the notebook is keeping him on track. He marks where it is in the day, and he just keeps turning the page. So he knows he starts every day with math. He just does his math lesson with me, does his work in here, turns the page, does his McGuffey stuff in here with me. A lot of it he does on his own. I mean, he really only is mostly just the first day that I'm very involved. Then he does his gentle grammar. Then he does his independent reading in his notebooking page. And then he does his spelling in his notebooking page. And then when he gets to math again, he knows it's the next day and he's done. So he just follows along. This is like his guide. And he doesn't have, once they're trained, they know what to do. And they don't really need to ask questions. On reserve, I have his famous scientists articles, just in case we need to do it. But I don't think I'm going to have to. And then the RC book list, the independent reading, I'm not really showing those books because we're just going to be grabbing them off the bookshelf as they come. But we read those titles, we buy them, on Amazon or whatever, and a lot of the titles we read through the Easy Peasy readers, which I've talked about as well. So anyways, those are our homeschool plans for 4th grade, and we'll be checking in during the year and show you how it's going. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.